My name is Bill DeRusha. I'm an engineering manager at edX on the learner team. This is Jasper Ho. He is on the product team for learner. And we're here to talk about internationalizing edX.org. Before we get started, I want to give a little bit of background to how we run our edX site, a little bit of what our internationalization strategy is, and kind of the relevance to the open edX community. edX.org, we run our own custom marketing site. There are actually a lot of instances of open edX that opt to use a custom marketing site as well. Does anyone here use a custom marketing site? No? Cool. Good to know. So for us, our internationalization strategy is, there's a lot of great work that's been done on open edX to internationalize. We have Arabic, we have Spanish, we have a lot of languages. Our marketing site right now is just in English, which is a real blocker for users being able to access all the great internationalization work that's happened over the last 3+ years for open edX. So we're trying to fill that gap, and that's really where our strategy is focused, is opening that gate so that we can really provide the value that open edX has been providing for the last 3 years. We can start to take advantage of that for all of our learners on edX.org, and it'll allow us to really, it'll make sense for us to start driving more of the internationalization capabilities of open edX as well, as you'll see later on in the presentation. But we're also going to talk generally about some key best practices for internationalization period. If you're creating X-blocks, if you're contributing code back, internationalization is really important to everyone. So it's not just our project that we're, the thing that not announced, all of that is our own marketing site, but it has real implications for everyone contributing code to edX. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jasper, who's going to lead you through some of the more strategic approaches of how you should be thinking about internationalization.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Bill. Can everybody hear me? Awesome. So again, my name is Jasper. I'm a product manager here at edX. I work with the learner group. And there are 2 core concepts to internationalizing a website. So let's go over a little bit of abbreviations. So internationalization, it's kind of hard to write out every single time. And so you'll see us use an abbreviation I18N for internationalization. You'll also see us use an abbreviation for localization, L10N. The 18 is the 18 characters in between the very long word, and the 10 is the 10 characters in between. So, next. All right, so I'm going to give you a very abstract kind of definition here. Internationalization is developing features so that they may be used interchangeably between different locales and languages. I'm going to burn through this pretty fast. Localization is implementing locale languages or content using the internationalized features. Now, that's a very kind of abstract definition. So I'm going to give us an analogy. So imagine a car. Everybody here has seen a car? Yes? All right. So imagine a car for a single market. Now, for a single market, the driver's side is either on the left or the right side. Take, for instance, the United States. The driver is on the left side. And in the UK, the driver is on the right side. So what does that have to do with localization and internationalization? Localizing a car is choosing which side you're going to put the steering wheel on based on what the market wants. Now, in the UK, that side is the right side. In the US, that side is on the left side. Now, internationalizing this car is basically making sure that we're not developing and maintaining 2 completely different car frames, the left side for the US and the right side for the UK, but that we are modifying the framework of the car so that it makes it easier to install a steering wheel both on the left or the right side, so that when we expand to other markets, the only thing you have left to do is to choose which side you want to put the steering wheel on. However, localizing a car isn't just the steering wheel. That's just the most obvious thing. So, going back to our website, localizing and internationalizing our site isn't just making an English word into a Spanish word. It is considering every aspect of the website from the perspective of the learner. So how do we do that? We made a list. And how do we make that list? We literally went through every single kind of page, banner, section, area, etc., and we asked ourselves two questions. One, would the learner have a better experience if that piece of content, if that area were customized to their language preferences? And if it was yes, then we wrote that down as a bullet point. And then the immediate following question is, how do we do it? And that's internationalizing that kind of feature. And if we said, well, we don't want to maintain two car frameworks, we want to make it easy, that actually just is another bullet point on that list. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, our web page is 100 pages. How big of a list am I going to have? Well, we had a very, very, very big list. So one of the things that we really kind of considered, and this is just an example of internationalizing and localizing something, is the partners' logos on our homepage. Everyone has seen our homepage, yes? All right. So when you go to our homepage, you can see there are 5 logos there. The yellow, which is the localization, we asked ourselves, would it be beneficial, would our learners have a better experience landing on the home page if we showed them partners that provided them with Spanish content? Because that's a little bit more relevant to them, right? And then we asked ourselves, well, how do we make it so that we don't have to maintain 2 completely different home pages? And so that is a great example of internationalization versus localization. Anyway, going back to that list, how do we figure out what the most important things are on that list, and how do we prioritize them? So I don't know if you guys remember this, but Ian, our VP of product, mentioned that we prioritize based on the learner impact. If the learner is getting a lot of value out of that localization and out of that customization, that will put it higher above everything else. Now, well, that's easy enough to say, right? How do I make that determination? And we determined that using data. And by talking to our learners and by talking to our partners as well. Some data points. Google Analytics. You can look at, for instance, a percentage bounce. You can look at number of sessions. You can look at which pages are the most likely a learner will land on from Google. And for us, it was pretty obvious. The most people landed on our website typically land on the homepage and specific course about pages. You can see those pages out in production today. So this is a bit of a shortened list from that insane list of things that we had to consider by going through every single page and every single section. I really wanted to point out some of the more interesting things. Bill's going to cover the more like tactical level stuff, such as date, time, and currency formatting. An interesting one is legal implications. In Europe, there are privacy laws that are very different than that in America. And we touched on custom marketing capabilities, and the last thing I really want to point out is SEO implications. That's actually very, very important to kind of get right the first time because you don't want to ruin your SEO score. All right, so what are we doing next? After having laid out all of this stuff, we're going to focus on the search page and making sure that our learners have a good experience in trying to find their courses. You can see us, we've made some progress already today. It's not 100% complete, but if you go to our course search, you can see that the facets are already localized. After the search, we're going to focus on the e-commerce checkout page. All right, so again, I spoke at a very high level, and I'm going to hand the presentation over to Bill, and Bill's going to talk about a few tactical things.
Ooh, a little mood lighting. Ooh. So, perfect lighting for some implementation best practices. All right, cool. It's like a light show. This is great. So, how many people know about the HTML lang attribute? A couple? Oh, awesome. Great. That's great to hear. A lot of people don't know about this attribute, which is why I wanted to call it out specifically. It's an HTML attribute where you can mark up your markup and actually describe the language that the content is going to be in. So for this, it's especially important for screen readers. If you are a user using a screen reader, this is the difference between having a screen reader yell at you, hola, jalapeno, quesadilla, which is fine, and they'll get it, but it's not going to be great. They're going to notice that you didn't take the time. It pulls them out of the experience of your website and has them start thinking about, like, oh, they weren't thinking about me. Another really nice thing for this, for visual users, you can actually style based on the lang attribute, based on the value in the lang attribute. So if you are trying to localize for Japanese language users, you can show them an ordered list, and it'll say 1, 2, 3, and that'll be fine for them. They'll get by. Or you can actually style that list in katakana or hiragana or whatever you deem most appropriate for that locale. And it's just a nice little things like that like they tell a user, you're paying attention, you care about making the site the best for them, and it keeps them in the moment, in the site, and they don't have to take that step back and think, oh, this is weird. Okay, I'll get over it. Oh, there we go. The next piece that's really important is language detection. How do you know what language to even show for user? What locale should I be using? Here's a really great one, user preferences. If the user has already told you, I want to see the site in Spanish, hello, show them the site in Spanish. We're going to be doing the work that Jasper just mentioned for e-commerce. E-commerce right now is mostly localized. It's mostly internationalized, but it doesn't know about the user language preference that you picked in your LMS, and that's frustrating. So some of the work that we're going to be doing is just wiring up the user preference. It's that easy. You can do it in cookies. You can do it in your JSON web token. The implementation details are not as important as the higher level, like just think about what the user is telling you and listen to them. URLs is another great way that learners will tell you, I want to see your content in this locale. These are some great SEO choices. You can use query parameters, lang equals. That's not great SEO. Google's not going to know what to do with that. So given the choice, we would definitely say that using TLDs and path prefixing and subdomains is a better choice if all else is equal for you. Definitely go with these, and then you can switch out your content based on this, and the user's telling you, hey, this is what I want to see. Or you can put those directly in a Spanish marketing email, a Spanish communication, and know that they're going to stay in that language context the whole way through. The last way, if the user isn't directly telling you by going to a website or clicking on, I want to see this in Spanish, the browser is going to send an accept language header with most requests. This is based on your language settings that you've set for the internet at large. It's just a string. It's just a language code. It's going to say ES. If you're poly whatever, yeah, you guys get it. Poly whatever. Spanish, and then if you don't have Spanish, show me French. This user, Spanish actually doesn't have a weight, which gives it the highest weight, and then they want German, and then they want French. It's important to note that this spec does not care about order. So just reading it left to right or right to left isn't necessarily going to get you the right thing. It's better than doing nothing if you don't have the ability to actually parse the weights, but if you do, it's definitely worth taking that extra step and really listening to what the user is saying. Now, if you aren't going to use URLs to manage your content and you're just going to use like the browser, and you care about caching, these are all going to resolve to Spanish, and they're all going to be different cache keys. I think you guys can see the implications. This is one of literally infinite cache keys, which basically is like, why are you caching at all? We do this on a couple of pages on our site right now, and the way we resolve this is the layer before the cache, we actually have some logic to resolve all of these headers to what we are going to show the user. So all of these would resolve to Spanish, and we'll actually cache on Spanish content rather than an infinite number. So just little things like that will help you give the right thing to the user, but also not destroy your site performance. All right, now meat and potatoes time, string translation. This is something that hopefully people are a little bit familiar with already. It's mostly just wrapping strings, but the quality of your translation really depends on how you go about wrapping these strings. So variables is a really interesting place where people can run into some pitfalls. So let's say we have an example. We want to show this string to deliver this to the browser. We're going to bold, my car is a variable name car model, and bold. You could just grab getText and wrap the string, the static string, and call it a day. And just as a point of note, this most of these slides are going to be in Python, but this Django getText is based on Python getText, which is based on GNU getText. It's all standard, and it's implemented in most languages. There are libraries that already do this. So this is relevant for everything, not just Python, but Python seems like a pretty comfortable thing for everybody, so we're going to go with that. So what's wrong with this? Well, if you decide, I don't want to bold this anymore, and it should be italicized, well, now this string that you translated is no longer a valid key, and someone has to go back in and retranslate my car is a. You've already translated it, but now it's not in your dictionary anymore. So one easy thing to do is just move HTML out of those getText keys. Second thing is, my car is a blank, depending on what language you are in, has huge grammar implications. Car model might actually need to go in the middle. It might need to be my car model is a, depending on what language you're actually displaying. This doesn't support that at all. Also, let's say that that isn't an issue for you because you know everything. Good for you. The translator doesn't know what this is. They just say, my car is a. My car is a great car. My car is a noun. My car is an adjective. Has also huge grammar implications, and your translators won't know that. So let's improve it. Most getText implementations allow you to give translators notes. If you can't capture it in code, you can capture it in a nice comment. This is going to be paired with the company logo. That might be relevant. It might not be relevant to the actual translation, but it helps the translator get in the mindset of your learner, which will help them give your learners better translations. We took my suggestion. Oh, good job. We took these out, no more HTML, and we're actually passing a variable name that not only can a translator move this variable around based on the proper grammar syntax, but we also tell them what it is. Okay, it's a car model. I should have actually probably named this car model, because model is even a little bit ambiguous. It could be a clay model versus, who knows. That might be important, and I think the thing you'll find is the things you don't think about end up being important when you go into a new locale that you aren't familiar with. Plurals. This is fun. Does anyone speak Arabic here? Great. How are plurals? Does this work? No. Oh, it doesn't work. Weird. Yeah, there are 6 of them. So this doesn't capture a lot of plural cases. This might work for English. It might work for Spanish, where you have these binary plurals of plural or not plural. But there's a method for that. You can use NGETText. NGETText will, because a lot of languages do just have singular or plural, you're just going to pass in the singular or the plural, and then the cardinality that you're going to be switching based on. But what NGETText is going to do for you, This is most things. This is Arabic. This is Welsh. And NGETText will actually display the right pluralization based on the cardinality that you pass it, so you don't have to think about it, and your learners have a better experience where they aren't confused. Like, they'll get it. You showed them 6, and then you showed them the wrong pluralization. Okay, great, I have 5 car. I understand, but it feels weird, and it makes me feel like you don't care about the learner, and obviously you do, but little things like this, which are easy if you know about them, can make a huge difference to your learners. Dates. Dates are important to localize. There isn't actually a lot to talk about here. If we're using Python, the date time is going to be localized for you if you set the locale, and that will work in most cases. If you're using, there are also frameworks like Moment.js if you're doing something on the front end. It's just another note, pay attention. Like, your users are noticing, the learners are noticing when you don't do this, and it's so easy to just set it and then use your string print time and just have it work. Now, managing translations is another key component. We use transifex. Anant or Joel, I think Joel talked about that a little bit. We like transifex because it's free for open source projects, which is great if you're also open source. You can leverage some crowdsourced translations and help bring, we at edX have not contributed any of our Arabic things, but we have great partners who have, and that means that open edX instances can choose to use Arabic if they want. And there are many more, and the community can really control the amount of translations. If, like, you have a deadline and you really want to get something out, transifex also has paid translation services that are actually very high quality, we've found, but also a lot of that is up to you, making sure that you wrap the strings properly. Like, you give them the power to give you good translations. It's also important to make sure that you have a varied array of file formats. We were using just Django, and we switched to also having some JavaScript-based translations, and just being able to click download as JSON was very easy, and it meant we didn't have to do anything. So if you're choosing a translation management provider, it's important to think of those things because you don't know what you're going to need. So having kept some of those things in mind may help you down the road. So that's it for best practices. Where do you start? You just finished your X block and you want to contribute it back. You just finished this piece of code and you didn't really think about internationalization. Where do you start? And honestly, start small. Wrap the content. Don't worry about HTML lang attribute. Don't worry about the fact that in Japanese, a check mark can actually mean you're wrong. There are tons of improvements. You're never done internationalizing. You're never done. But as long as you're continually providing value, it's going to get better and better and better, and your users are going to have a better experience every single time. And it's often better to give them the translations first, even if they're not 100% right, because it's better than not giving them any translation. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Start delivering value and keep delivering value. There are also a lot of great resources that you can use. Former edXer Serena Kainlink has a great PyCon talk about I18N, highly worth watching. You may notice some of the slides are a little hijacked. She gave a great talk, and it was a great inspiration for some of the things in here. Still very relevant. We have an I18N Open edX Slack channel. You should definitely be on that if you have questions. We have a mailing list that is the same people that are on that Slack channel. We have an I18N tools GitHub repository. Look at that. You don't have to, don't reinvent the wheel. We've done a lot of, we at edX and we, the open source community, have done a lot of the work. So see what we've done first. And we have a lot of great documentation on edX best practices, open edX best practices, what we strive for in internationalization. So with that, we want to open it up for some questions. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Pierre. Unicode.
know where I'm going with this, because there are some parts of the code that doesn't support Unicode because we're still running in Python 2.
Yep. Yeah, that Unicode is, we were trying to keep this talk in particular somewhat language agnostic, but let's be honest, we're doing a lot of it in Python. So Unicode is an important consideration. If we go all the way back to this guy breaks. I didn't put my little Unicode string here. Ned has a great talk that you should all watch called the Unicode Sandwich. This getText, we're using uGetText. That means we're returning a Unicode string, which means you need Unicode across the board. So that is an important consideration and something.
Especially in French with accentuated characters that won't resolve if you don't support Unicode.
Right. So. Yes, I don't know exactly what your question is, but it is a great point that I think everyone should keep in mind. Unicode is important, especially when you are outside of English, which is, hello, most of what we're talking about here. So definitely make sure you're considering Unicode. I definitely check out Ned's talk. It's very helpful and insightful. Yeah.
Okay. There is one caveat on the detecting the language.
There is one caveat on the language detection. On some countries, like I'm from Jordan and I work at edX, it's in Arabic, much like edX. So the thing is that a big portion of our users, including me, are using an English browser on an English OS and expecting from edX to show in Arabic. So that's a puzzle. So this is one additional, yeah. So yeah, this is one additional implication that at least we, the local folks, have to think about. So maybe edX can show a default English, but at edX it's not appropriate because 98% of our users are expecting us to show the English page. So we have a cool open source PR, but it's local on our fork. So if anyone maybe you peer want to have that facility to show a default French page on your open edX. So that's one additional thing besides URLs and except language.
Yeah, definitely. That is a great point. Yeah.
Hi. I can't remember the name, but for Spanish language, there are also variations because Spanish from Spain is some kind different from Spanish from Mexico or Argentina or whatever. But also, could we maintain a difference between Spanish formal or polite versus Spanish more casual from young people or something like that?
Sorry, could you repeat that last part? Just want to make sure I get to the whole thing.
Can we manage Spanish variations? Mm-hmm. And also, for example, if I want a more formal or polite version of a Spanish translation, make a fork or duplicate or something, and have all this kind of stuff in the same instance?
Yeah, so that is totally doable. We, for our current strategy, are only planning on delivering one, so we thought it easier just to resolve to Spanish and not worry exactly about regions. But all of the detection logic that I talked about handles regions. It's all meant to handle regions. So you can have Spain Spanish and Argentinian Spanish and Colombian Spanish and Mexican Spanish. They can all live side by side. And if you want, say you wanted to just have formal Spanish and informal Spanish and not care about the locale, you can actually have custom. I know Python supports it. You can have custom locales where you could have ESF and ESC, and you can write your own logic to determine which one you want to be showing and write your translations based on that. And you can provide your translators comments similarly so that they know how to best translate that content appropriately. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, how many specialists do we need to fully translate the platform? I mean, is it enough to have one translator and one backend developer? Or do we need anybody else?
I think it depends. It depends a lot on your needs. If you have the ability to hire a translation manager, then that is probably one of the better case scenarios. If you want to do open source translations, that's great, but it's harder. It takes a lot longer. You don't, depending on who. They may not read the comments that you wrote because it might just be super excited and just dive right in, and it's their first time on Transifex, and so there are a lot of things to consider. I think depending on the scope of work, one person can definitely be enough, but it depends on what your needs are. If it's mostly language content, that's one thing. If it is a lot of back-end work to swap out images and show different icons, and there are a lot of considerations. I mean, Jasper showed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it really depends on your needs. As your site advances, we ourselves just hired a marketing manager for Spanish, and he's done a great job helping us really even modify and make better some of the translations that we had from our paid translation service. And so as your needs grow and as you need to switch out content, it might make sense to hire somebody like that so that you can really give your learner the best experience. Cool. I think we've got, sorry, thank you. We've got 2 more minutes left, so let's take gentleman here.
Hello, I'm from Portugal. I've been making sites for a long time, and I also have internationalization issues. And from my findings, I have 2 things that I would like to ask. First is, why do you use English as your source for the dictionary instead of a semantic, source, let's say? Because when you say my car is and you're supposed to be a model, and then you have a variable model, I know. But sometimes the variable is more generic, and maybe it doesn't, on that web page it means model, and on the other page it may mean other things. So sometimes it uses semantic, it's different, and I think it's better. And the second thing is, what about big strings? This is okay for, let's say, 80 characters, maybe 100 characters, but sometimes you have on site big characters. And what I usually do is I put that on file system, and then I have multiple files using for different languages. Do you have any guidelines for that?
So to address your question a little bit, most of what we've localized is very small snippets of text. There are mostly UI localizations to help our learners really find the courses that they're looking for. We haven't really come across a use case currently, and we definitely will in the future. But for right now, the few pages that we really focused on were much shorter strings, and so we haven't bumped into that problem yet.
Yeah, I think the important thing is to make sure you're giving. It's a balance. It's definitely, there's no right way. You could have 10 paragraphs, and that might be what the minimum that you need to give the context to the translator to really do a good job. But if one paragraph is enough to get that context, then you can minimize every change needing a full retranslation if you're using something like that. If you have in-house translation, then that's another component that you might not need to consider. So I think it definitely is dependent upon your particular needs. But I'm happy to talk to, that's all the time we have for this presentation, but definitely find us afterwards. We're happy to talk about it more. If people are really interested, we can put together a birds of a feather meeting and have everyone meet up. So definitely find us for that. Thanks a lot.
Cool. Thank you.